What's up guys, welcome to new Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. With the release of Unreal Engine 5.6, we've got a bunch of new templates that can kickstart your projects. So I decided to create a mini series where we'll take those templates, break them down, and customize them to build full games faster. This is the template customization workshop, completely free right here on YouTube. In this first episode, we're diving into the FPS shooter template. I'll show you how to get started, what's included, and how to start making it your own. With that said, it's going to be a very easy video to follow, so let's get started. Okay, so in order to create a new project using the new first person template, we gotta go to the first person template over here, but select a variant. So yes, now in the Unreal Engine browser, we can go ahead and select variants for the different templates. In this case, I'm going to be selecting the arena shooter, that's basically the FPS shooter. So I'll go ahead and just fill up a name and create the project. Okay, so once the project is opened, as you can see, the first big difference is the map. It's completely different. It's similar to the old one, but with new obstacles, new jump pads, pickups, a lot of cool stuff. So it's going to be better for playtest and to actually go ahead and test your functionality without needing to create your own obstacles, because before you had to pretty much create your own map with obstacles and stuff. Now straight up you can use this ones, which is amazing. And before diving in, let's go ahead and hit play to see what we have over here. So big difference from the old template, we can now go ahead and pick up different kinds of weapons, and we actually have dummies that we can shoot at them. Now, one of the coolest things in my opinion are the new bullets. As you can see, they're kind of Nerf guns, which they stick, wiggling, and then they fall. It's so cool. But yeah, we also have ammo, as you can see at the bottom left of the screen. And it kind of fills up again. And we can go ahead and pick up different weapons. And then we have a different kind of mechanic. Now, yes, you're seeing that the bullets are different. That's because I'm recording this after this workshop where we changed the bullets. So yeah, in this video I will show you how to change the bullets, which is gonna be very interesting. But yeah, going back to over here, we also have more dummies, which are not AIs, but they're just kind of more like boxing mannequins. And then we can also have jump pads and jump, which is really cool. And of course we can change the force of them. So for example, change the force to be way higher. And yeah, we can go ahead and shoot at everything. Shoot this guy with my new bullets, and yeah, the template is amazing. So let's go ahead and cover this up. So let's go ahead and dive into the blueprints and how this template works and how it is built, okay? Because it's similar to the old one, but with a bunch of modifications, and it's just bigger. So let's go ahead and break this down step by step so you can understand this, and then obviously build your games from here. So first things first, in the content browser we have the first person folder with all the blueprints, and this is the first person character blueprint. Now this blueprint is the base of the FPS movement on this template. You will see that later we have another child of this blueprint with more functionality. That is the one that has all of the shooting, guns, and the stuff. But this is basically the simplest version of an FPS movement, okay? The first thing you might notice is that we have two meshes. We have one for third person and another one for first person. And if we actually go and select the meshes and type owner, you can see that for the third person mesh, owner no see. This is done so that only other players in multiplayer can see your third person character. But when you are in first person, you don't see the whole body. Instead, you see the first person mesh, which only the owner can see. This so that the guns don't, you know, go through your arm. It looks better, and still other people can actually see your character, which is very important. Now this is a huge improvement from the previous template. The previous template was purely only the arms and that stuff. Now you can see that even the first person mesh still covers the whole body, but it's built a bit differently. It's a bit more leaned back, as you can see, to kind of have room for the arms and the weapons and the stuff, and everything just works fine. This is a common technique used in a lot of FPS games, which is to fake the meshes by combining them and things like that. So that's cool. That's one of the big differences between the templates, okay? Now moving on, we of course have the event graph with some code. Now you will notice that we have less code than before. Why? Well, first of all, now we actually have functions. So yeah, before all of this code and this code was used all in the event graph, now it is actually split and separated into functions, which is a bit neater. So we want to go to the move function over here. You can see that this is the input, this is the function, double click, and here is everything. So it's just a bit easier to modify, change, adapt. It's just a bit more organized, okay? So another plus on here from the Epic team, because now it is just a bit easier to add more functionality into the main event graph. And if we go to event graph, you might notice that we don't have a begin play. We have an event persist. Now this change was already done a couple of versions ago, maybe even just one version back. Now you might be wondering, what is this? Well, this is pretty much the replacement of the begin play. Okay, this executes when a player starts controlling this actor. In this case, that will happen at the start of the game, aka at the begin play. So this is just a bit of a better way to execute all the logic that we need at the start of the game, okay? In this case, we're just going ahead and getting the player controller and just getting the platform name. And if we are on Android or iOS, we create a Tart widget. And this is basically just some controls for the mobile movement, as you can see. But if we are in Windows or in any other, we just go and add the normal movement for our mouse. And this, as you can see, is a simple IMC. Now, if you don't know what an IMC is, it's just a collection of inputs. This was introduced way back, I believe, in 5.1 with a new input system, which is the enhanced input system. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, you would notice that you don't have also the mapping context for the movement. This only covers the mouse. So you might be wondering, where are we at in this? Well, if we go back to the content browser, we go to content, first person blueprints, you will see that we have a first person player controller. And inside of this player controller class, in here on the begin play, we simply add the IMC default, which is essentially the list of all of the inputs in our game. In this case, it's very simple. It's just jump, move, and look, right? Because as I mentioned before, this character just handles the basic movement of an FPS character, and that's it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can go into detail and check out all the functions, but I mean, they're very straightforward. They're basically identical to the ones that were a couple versions back. You know, it's just exactly the same thing. But yeah, now with functions and more of a Marvel support, which is pretty cool in that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the main first person character, okay? So before moving into the weapons and pickups and all that stuff, let's go ahead and check out the child class of this FPS, because if I press play, as you can see, we can actually pick up weapons and shoot, but we didn't have that logic on that blueprint that I just opened. This is because it is separated. So if we go back to the content folder, we can see another folder called variant shooter. And if we open this up, click on blueprints, first person, and open up this BP FPS shooter, as you can see, boom, we have more logic over here. What is happening? If we go to the viewport, it's exactly the same thing. Well, as you can see, the parent class is BP first person character. And if we open that up, well, it's the one that we actually just opened a couple seconds back. So yes, this FPS shooter is a child of the other class. But this one now has all of the logic to actually pick up weapons, shoot, and get damage with health and stuff. So it's just separating the logic so that everything is more organized, and you have the option to choose only a simple FPS movement or a whole FPS shooter movement in controller. It's just super cool, okay? So yeah, if you want to make modifications to the base movement, you will need to go into this blueprint. But if you want to make modifications to the shooting and everything, you need to go to this one instead. It is as simple as that, okay? And here we have a whole bunch of things for, as you can see, the health when we receive damage, for changing the weapon depending on the amount of owned weapons. So we're gonna be checking all that stuff right now through the pickup system, okay? Let's go ahead and close this and check out the pickup system. Now the pickup system is very simple but pretty cool. What we can do is just go here, we see them kind of spinning around, we go over it, we now have it in our hand, and we can now of course use it, okay? It's nothing crazy, but it is super cool, effective, and easy to modify, which is the basically the target by Epic Games. Target is to make it easy to use and to be able to be customizable. So let's go ahead and check out this blueprint. As you can see, it is pretty different from runtime. It's just a simple cube. Obviously, that's because at runtime we select the mesh of the weapon that we want to pick up. So we select this and go to the details panel. You can see that we have the spawn time, so how much time it takes to respawn the gun, and then of course the weapon type. So under this data table we can select the specific weapon that we want. So it could be a pistol, and now as you can see, if I go back over there, it is, as you can see, a pistol instead of a rifle. So this is super customizable, super cool, and because it is a data table, it's easy for you to add new weapons. So before actually opening up the pickup system or the pickup object, let's go ahead and check out this data table because it's quite important. So open this up and boom, as you can see, it is as simple as that. We can add as many weapons as we want, and we can accept a static mesh and a spawn actor for each weapon. So if you were to add a new weapon, just click add, put the name, and then you will say, okay, well, this will be this mesh for this weapon, and the spawn actor, well, you need to of course create a new actor for that, but it will be that one. Pretty cool, right? And of course this data table is just using the structure, which is this, a mesh and an actor. Okay, super simple. Now I've used data tables in my tutorials a lot of times, especially in the RPG series, so if you want to learn a lot about them, check that out. Cool. So with that said, let's go ahead and now yes, open up this blueprint actor, which is the BP pickup. And as you can see at the begin play, we simply get the weapon type, which is that variable that we update on here in the details panel, and get the specific row name, aka the weapon that we want. Now we break it and we have access to the mesh and the actor as we did in the data table. So now as we have the static mesh and the spawn actor of the weapon that we want to spawn, we can do stuff. For example, set the static mesh of this component over here and it will update. So if I were to go ahead and do here rifle and put this here, this is pretty much what will happen but at runtime, okay? Depending on what we select over here. So it's super cool and super easy, as you can see, but obviously Epic chose to use a cube as a placeholder, so it's just universal. Alright, going back here, it does not only do the static mesh, but also the class itself of the weapon, which has the behavior of the weapon. And then of course, when we go ahead and overlap through the sphere collision, which is this one over here, this is basically the trigger to pick up the weapon, okay? So when the player goes through there, we execute this logic over here, and the first thing that we do is obviously add the weapon class to the player. So the other actor is the FPS shooter blueprint, or the enemy blueprint if enemies were able to pick up weapons, and we just go ahead and do it through an interface. So you'll see later on the interface and so on, but then we obviously hide the rifle mesh, so it's no longer there. We disable the collision, so we cannot pick it up again. We disable the tick, which spins, so we are especially just going ahead and stopping the spinning because there's no point on keeping the spin going, right? If there's no weapon. And then it simply goes ahead and does a little timer to enable the pickup again. Okay, and it simply just spawns in again this, it starts spinning, and you know, it just sets the tick back again, so it starts doing all the stuff again, right? So it's fairly simple, very straightforward, nothing crazy, and the spin simply has a little calculation to update the kind of spinning positions, okay? With a sine wave. The sine wave just goes up and down, and it just does a cool effect, right? So nothing crazy, but pretty cool and straightforward. They could obviously have done also this with a timeline and things like that, but the sine wave is easy to introduce, as you can see. So yeah, that's pretty much. And yeah, you also have a lot of variables over here, which are pretty much just used internally in the code to add all the stuff. So yeah, so now as you can see, we call this add weapon class, but it's bring us to here. This is because we're using an interface, and interfaces allows us to communicate with different actor classes without having a direct reference to that class, which is way more optimized and just organized because we can use it across multiple classes. So if I go right ahead and open up the blueprint for our first person shooter, we can go to interfaces, And as you can see, we have the, well, actually it's not interfaces, it should be in event graph, and it's add weapon class. Okay, so this is basically what we are calling when we pick up the weapon, and if the weapon is already owned, we don't do anything. We only want to do it when the weapon is not already in our inventory, let's call it like that. And then we go ahead and spawn the actor in our position, and we set the owner to be ourselves. We add it into our list of owned weapons, and then we go ahead and just check if we need to activate it, deactivate it, all that stuff. And then up here is where we actually fire the montage and play a little animation. And it's very important, this owned weapons array, because that allows us to go ahead and change and swap the weapons. As you can see, this is the input action to swap the weapons. We simply go ahead and get the whole length. If it's bigger than 1, that means that we have more than 1 weapon. So we deactivate the current weapon, go to the next one, and activate it. As simple as that. And it's just that over and over in a loop. Yeah, pretty straightforward, nothing crazy. I mean, if you were to just add new weapons through the data table and through the pickup actor, you will not need to do any modifications to this, because this is only if you want to change the swap weapon system. But it's pretty universal, so work in a lot of cases. Yeah, you also can go ahead and add another interface when we receive the input. Now, why are we adding another IMC? We already have 3 IMCs. Well, this is because on this third one, we're adding the other inputs that we need for the shooting mechanics, which is the swap weapon and the shooting itself. It is pretty much as simple as that, okay? And we divide it into different IMCs, like I said, so we can have a class with purely the movement of our FPS controller, and then another one with a child with more inherited mechanics like firing and all that stuff. Cool. So with that said, we have a bunch of stuff over here, as you can see. So that's pretty much the main thing about the FPS movement, FPS shooter, and the weapon pickups. But there's more. There's more, okay, guys? If we go here into blueprints, we also have, apart from the first person's game mode, which just adds an overlay, and we have the team score, which is pretty cool. We also have another kind of player controller, which spawns all the actors on the start, and it does a couple more stuff, like for example the interface that we use to increase the team score and things like that, okay? But apart from all that stuff, over here we also have more pickups, and this is where things get interesting, because we have the weapon base, okay? And this is basically the parent blueprint of all weapons, okay? Now we have 2 options for a first person weapon and a third person weapon. In this one, I think they just leave it both to be the same, but you have the option to change them. And then in the event graph, well, as you can see, it kind of initializes the whole measures that have to be done, and it does a couple of things. For example, deal with the firing and the stop firing. Very important. This is where the actual firing and shooting logic comes in. It's pretty straightforward, as you can see. Here's fire, and it basically does the fire bullet, right? And the fire bullet is its own function, which spawns the actor, guess what, of bullet class, and it adds a force and all that stuff. Now the force obviously is done here on the bullet itself, which is this one over here, which is pretty cool because it's like Nerf guns. So yeah, if you ever wanted to change the bullet mesh, you can just do it over here and change how it looks, right? And of course, if you want to have multiple bullets for different weapons, you would just duplicate this pistol bullet actor, and then under the bullet class, you would just select the one that you want for each weapon. Simple as that, right? Obviously, I'm not going through each node in the whole weapon base and pistol bullet, because we will be here like days. I'm giving you overall the overview of the new changes and how you would, you know, change the bullets and things like that. Obviously, I'm considering that you have already a basic understanding of blueprints and Unreal Engine in general. This is not a super beginner tutorial. I just also want to clarify that, but I guess even beginners could follow me around and kind of orient themselves through this new template, which is pretty cool. I try to make the purpose of the video, you know, feel for everyone, which is very important for me. But anyway, apart from obviously the projectile movement, which adds the force to the bullet itself and that stuff, we obviously have the hit events, right? We want to go ahead and hit actors and deal damage and things like that. So that's why it is done through over here. And once again, we even have it as a child, which is important because we might want to have multiple bullets, not just this one for the pistol. So it's very important. And yeah, I mean, it kind of adds a little wiggle when it you know, hits a wall. We can actually see it over here. If I go and find a cool weapon, you will see that it has kind of a wiggle effect, which is pretty cool. And that's kind of this timeline over here. As you can see, it's not any crazy physics or anything. It is actually faked through this manual timeline, which is cool. So yeah, this opens the possibility of adding like fake physics if you didn't realize that you could do that with Unreal Engine. I mean, why not fake it? It's gonna be more performant and easier to look in the same way all the time, you know? So it's not always just physics everywhere, guys. It's sometimes you just gotta fake stuff. But yeah, there's more stuff to you know, fix the velocity and things like that, but I will not go in such detail with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool because there's a lot of options to modify each bullet, and like I said, it's easy to customize them. But yeah, that's mainly the logic of the weapon base. I mean, you also have the things to activate the weapon, to deactivate the weapon, but the main logic is obviously to fire and fire. And obviously there's options to make it automatic, to make it just single. There's a bunch of stuff, and this is all done already by Epic through Boolean, so it's as easy just enabling or disabling the Boolean. Now remember, this is the weapon base. This is the parent of all weapons, because then we obviously have each weapon itself, and I believe it should be here. Yes, exactly. The rifle, as you can see, is over here, and it's a child of weapon base, which is this one. And obviously this one, which is specific for the rifle, would have, well, the rifle mesh already put in, and on the class defaults it would have the rifle montage when you fire, right, for the animation, and the bullets, the mag size, and the pistol, and the, which is this one, right, the blueprint class. So yeah, I mean, it's basically this. Like, you can imagine that you can pretty much customize everything from the class defaults. It's pretty straightforward. So if you wanna, for example, change the amount of bullets that you have on the magazine for this rifle, you would just do it here in the class defaults, which are the ones that are exposed, right? Simple stuff. You want to change the bullet, just change it over here, right, with another blueprint class that you might have created. It's very straightforward, guys, like once you break out everything into little pieces. But yeah, that's mainly the, you know, main part of the template. There's obviously much more stuff like the bounce pads and the AIs. Now the AIs are actually disabled by default, sorry, because they are just kind of more acting as dummies, if you didn't figure it out. But it's cool. I mean, we can also check them out. They're basically very simple. They do have the logic to move around, but it's disabled by default. But yeah, I mean, it's very simple. So you can see we just have any damage, health system, right? So current HP, if it's bigger than 0, that means that we have health. We want to subtract that with incoming damage, and if that's less than 0 at the end, we say die. And die is very simple. Do a little event, increment the team score from the game mode, which is very important because, well, if you want to increase the team score, right, when you kill people, it's very important. We disable the collision, so you cannot interact with it anymore. And then obviously we stop the movement, and in the mesh we set the profile name to be ragdoll. We enable the physics to actually ragdolls, and then it destroys the actor after 5 seconds to clean it up. I mean, this is pretty much just universal behavior of pretty much any enemy AI that could be in a game through blueprints. It's not any specific way that it's done. This is pretty much the checklist that you need to do if you were building AIs or enemies in your game. I mean, literally this. So it's a cool thing to follow too. Not only to use the blueprint, but learn from it for your own projects. And obviously it has its own interface to attach their weapon to their mesh, and as you can see, they're already aiming. Yeah, nothing crazy, but it's pretty cool. And obviously not only that, but we also have the jump pad. The jump pad is pretty cool. if you go to the event graph, we just have an actor begin overlay in this through this sphere. So once the player enters in the sphere, we add a little jump, but changing the velocity, so to actually make it a bit stronger and so on. So as you can see, the code to jump through the jump pad is pretty straightforward, but very effective and cool. And obviously this velocity is a thing that you could change over here. Z is the up axis right now, so 800 will just be 800 units upwards. And this is a thing that you can change over here for each jump pad, in the level. So for example, this jump pad wants to have a bigger force, we can just put like 2000, and now as you can see, I go way higher and pick up this weapon. Yeah, pretty simple, right? It's nothing crazy. Everything is exposed already, so it's easy to customize. And in the construction script, this basically runs not only in runtime, but also on here in the editor. And this is just to change the light colors randomly and all that stuff, right? To make the cool effects of the particles, right? So yeah, I mean, it's nothing crazy, just simple visual effects, which is pretty cool. Now, last but not least, I wanna open up real quick the animation blueprint. So let's go ahead and open it up. So let me go here into the first person shooter, and if I go to one of the meshes, as you can see, it is interesting because we have one for the third person and one for the first person, as I mentioned before. So you're saying, why are you repeating this? Well, that's because we also have one M class for the third person and the first person. As you can see, the first person is called copy. And if we open up, it's very simple. It literally just copies the parent, which is the mesh. So why are we doing this? Well, that's to not repeat animation blueprints. We can just simply copy the animation from the parent, which is the third person, and copy that into the first person. So that way we don't need to do two animation blueprints, if that makes sense. So we open up the unarmed. This is actually the main animation blueprint over here with all of these states. So on the locomotion, we have idle, walk, run. Very simple, right? With a simple blend space. So as the speed and direction changes of the character, we just kind of do this. So we have to kind of walk and kind of to jog a bit. It's pretty cool. We have in all directions. It's pretty advanced, this one. As you can see, there's even like just for a bit of angles. It's quite advanced. It's probably one of the most advanced blend spaces I've seen, honestly. I think it's even more advanced than Lyra. Well, Lyra, I don't know if they changed already to motion matching, but yeah, it's pretty cool. And then obviously, apart from the locomotion, we have the main states. This is exactly the same as the third person template from always, the old one. We just have the simple states for locomotion, land, and to land, and for the whole jumping. So I'm not gonna go in a lot of detail with this because it's pretty much as always, but if you want to have a look, feel free. It's very straightforward, okay? But yeah, and on the main event graph is where obviously we have all of the variables that are used in the animation graph to, you know, trigger the jumping if we are falling, to change the ground speed of the blend space, and the strafing and all that stuff. So yeah, very straightforward stuff, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview through the new FPS template. Obviously, I didn't go through every single node because, like I said, I'm kind of going as a generic overview for the new changes and how you can customize stuff, aimed a bit to devs that already have been working with Unreal Engine for a bit. Now, I don't want to finish this video right here because what I want to do is also showcase how we can actually change the bullet and a couple of stuff real quick. I mean, I also already kind of mentioned it when we were going through, but I want to actually do it to show you how easy it is. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so let's say that only for the pistol, we want to have a brand new bullet, okay? We no longer want to have this one over here, which is the same for pretty much all of them. If I go and pick up the pistols, you can see the same. So yeah, let's say that we want to go ahead and change this bullet to be a bit different. So in this case, we will need to go to the variant shooter folder, which is where we have all the FPS shooter logic. Go to blueprints, pickups, and as you can see, we have here the projectiles, okay? This is where we have the bullets. So right now we have the pistol bullet. Very simple. It's basically a child of first-person projectile. So what we can do is duplicate this and call this, well, you know, custom bullet 2. Okay, cool, perfect. That's my new bullet. So first of all, let's go ahead and change the sphere over here, so we actually have a different model. Now in my case, I honestly don't have any models that I can choose from, so I'm gonna just select a random one that I find. But let's say that I want to shoot a little cube over here, right? That's it. So let me go ahead and just make it a bit bigger, and yeah, just keep it like this pretty much. Okay, so this is gonna be my new bullet. It is nothing crazy, but here it is. Now also have in mind that we already have a collision component, which is the collision that detects all the hits from the parent class. So if you want to make it also bigger or smaller, you can do that here, but obviously I just recommend to keep it like this. This is a pretty good size and positioning. Just make sure to place the model right kind of ending on the middle, if that makes sense, right? That will be pretty accurate. And you might also want to change the material of this. So I mean, I could go crazy and create a new material here for my new custom bullet, and this could be just a simple color. It can be maybe like, you know, pink or purple, and it could be maybe even glowing, right? So let's go ahead and add a multiplier to the emissive, and it's gonna be like ×3, so it's a bit glowing. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just assign it to both material slots, and yeah, now we have a kind of pink purple glowing bullet. Okay, this is my new bullet, and it will work exactly the same, because I mean, all of the logic and projectile movement I didn't change. It's exactly the same, right? And even the main logic is inherited from the parent. Okay, so it's no problem. So of course I said that I only want to change this bullet type to the pistol, not any other weapons. So now I just gotta go to the weapons folder, which is actually in pickups and pistol, and then open up the pistol blueprint. And we don't even need to go to the event graph. We can finally just go ahead and search for bullet, and you can see that we have current bullet class. Well, we want to go ahead and change this to my new bullet, which is the custom bullet 2. And if I now go ahead and do this, I can press play, I can pick up the rifle, and we still have the old original bullets. But if I go ahead and pick up the pistol, if I shoot, as you can see, we now have my glowing bullets, and they react in the exact same way. They still deal damage in the same way, but with my own custom models, which is super cool. And as you can see, it only happens for the pistol. If I change back to rifle, so you can see we go back, it's super cool. So yeah, that's how easy it is to change stuff in this project, especially for bullets and so on. And just to show you how quick it is to change the environment, this is an example. I mean, it feels like a completely different game. If I were to change the gun texturing and model, it would definitely look even better. But yeah, I mean, just import an environment and it will start to look quite insane, as you can see. Now I want to mention that this environment is part of the summer bundle by Lirte Studios. It basically contains around 28 packs filled with insane quality from one of the best asset creators of the whole Unreal Engine community, and you can get it right now. It is limited time. The original price of the bundle, combining all of the assets, is more than $4,000, but we're doing a special offer, which is if you use the code S60, you can get it for only $40. So go quick before the offer ends. The link is in the description. And of course, the process to migrate the environment is very easy. The only thing I did was go to the FPS shooter, open up the variant shooter folder, right click on the level, go to asset actions, and click on migrate with everything selected. When you migrate a level, it basically will migrate not only the level but everything included. In this case, the level includes the game mode with the player character, the weapons, the enemies, the pickups, everything. So in other words, it's just a shortcut to migrate everything that I need real quick. And I just did this to the Wild West project, which is this one over here. And yeah, I opened back again the Wild West project and had the folder with everything. I just went here to the world settings, went to the selected game mode, and changed this to be the one of GM shooter, which is this one here. And then once you press play, you got here the whole thing. Obviously, I also placed the pickup and everything, but yeah, it's fairly simple. So yeah, I'm not gonna go more in depth into this template right here because I think the video is getting a bit long, and I also want to cover all the templates in the following videos in the series. But if you are enjoying this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. Really appreciate it. If you are serious about learning Unreal Engine 5, join my Unreal Club. You will have access to a lot of project files of all of my tutorials, private meetings, and a lot of in-depth knowledge that I don't reveal anywhere else. So check that out with the first link in the description. And with that said, stay tuned for the rest of the mini-series. And now, yes, with all that said, bye-bye.